Darkness never begins with thunder. It starts with a whisper, a subtle word lodged in the silence of the human mind, so faint you mistake it for your own thought. The Bible called it the serpent more cunning than any beast of the field. Genesis 3:1. Buried for centuries, warned of the watchers who descended to seduce mankind. All these ancient texts, written oceans apart across centuries, tell the same story. Humanity has never been alone in its choices. There is always a voice, one that presses against the walls of your mind. And tonight, in this first step into Whispers of Darkness, I will drag that voice into the light. Imagine this. You're alone in your room at night. The lights are off. The clock ticks in its cruel rhythm. Outside, the world sleeps, but your thoughts don't. They stir, coil, gnaw at you. And then, from the pit of your own silence, comes a thought so sharp, so alien it feels like yours, but it isn't. That is where the darkness begins. Ancient Sumerian tablets, the Enuma Elish, spoke of a chaos dragon, Tiamat, whispering madness into men before swallowing them. The Greeks wrote of daimones, spirits who did not scream, but slipped suggestions into human ears. The Dead Sea, scrolls whispered of Belial, the lawless one, who ensnares men not by sword, but by thought. Even science, stripped of all faith, finds shadows in the same corner. Carl Jung named it the shadow, the hidden part of the psyche that whispers, urges you deny, but can't silence. Neuroscience admits, our thoughts are not all ours. Intrusive thoughts are universal. Every brain is a battlefield. Is it any wonder that every civilization, from Egypt's Book of the Dead to Augustine's Confessions, warned of an enemy that hides in the echo chamber of thought? The devil doesn't appear with horns and fire. He arrives as you, in your own voice. Let me be clear. This series, 20 episodes deep, isn't about folklore. It isn't about dusty scriptures locked in monasteries. This is about the battlefield inside you. Because Shaitan doesn't knock at the door of your life. He rearranges the furniture inside your mind. And the first rule of war? You must know your enemy. The church fathers in the Didache called him the double-tongued one. The Qur'an warned, he promises them and arouses desire, but Satan promises nothing but delusion. Surah An-Nisa 4:120. Dante, in Inferno, painted him not as fire but as ice, frozen at the pit of hell, silent and patient, because evil doesn't need to rush. It waits, it learns, it whispers, and here is the horror. When you hear that whisper enough times, you stop resisting. You begin to call it yourself. This is where our journey begins, not with monsters under the bed, but the monster breathing under your skin. Across 20 episodes, we will tear open the curtain, from Eden's garden to modern laboratories, from apocryphal books like the Testament of Solomon to psychological experiments in universities. Every fragment of history leads back to this one truth. Evil doesn't need to roar. It only needs to be heard. And you've heard it. You hear it still. Tonight, we drag it into the open. But beware. Once you see the shape of the whisper, you cannot unsee it. And so the question hangs, trembling in the silence. If your thoughts are not always yours, then whose voice has been speaking inside your head? Whose voice has been speaking inside your head? That question isn't just poetry. It's the oldest terror humanity has ever known. The Qur'an says, he, Satan, whispers into the hearts of mankind. Surah An-Nas 114:5. Augustine wrote in his Confessions, I was divided against myself, and yet I was not wholly divided, for there was still within me a voice not my own. Even the Egyptian Book of the Dead warns of a shadow spirit that follows a man, planting thoughts like seeds into his soul. And think about this. Every culture, every corner of history, carved into clay, ink, or parchment, spoke of an enemy that does not strike with weapons, but with suggestions. That is no coincidence. Let's make this clear. Evil doesn't storm the gates of your life. It doesn't need to. It simply leans closer, inside. Have you ever stood at the edge of a tall building and felt that intrusive urge? What if I jump? Have you ever looked at someone you love and suddenly thought, what if I hurt them? That thought came uninvited. It wasn't you. It wasn't love. It was the whisper. Modern psychology calls these intrusive thoughts. Doctors will tell you they are part of the brain's random firings. But is randomness enough to explain the chilling precision of those whispers, the way they always strike where you are weakest? The Dead Sea Scrolls call Belial the Lord of Lawlessness, who exploits the cracks in man's soul. The Greeks called them kakodaimones, spirits that target your specific weaknesses. And in Jewish mysticism, the Zohar described the Sitra Achra, the other side, a force that doesn't invent sin but amplifies what is already there. Evil knows you better than you know yourself. Picture this, a courtroom. On one side, you. On the other side, every thought you've ever had. Not the ones you're proud of, but the ones you buried. The rage, the envy, the lust, the impulse to destroy. And standing in the shadows, smiling, is the voice that whispered them to life. The Bible calls him the accuser. Satan, who stands before God to recount your failures, Job 1:6-12. The Qur'an records his promise. I will lie in wait for them on your straight path. Then I will come to them from before them and behind them, and from their right and their left. Surah Al-Araf 7:16-17. Do you understand? This isn't just an external enemy. This is an intimate invader, one that does not break your walls. It becomes your walls. Te'ai. And science, cold, hard science, admits a horrifying truth. The human brain cannot always distinguish between your thought and a foreign one. Electroencephalography shows spikes, signals, moments where thoughts appear in the mind without traceable origin. A phantom pattern, an echo without a source. So ask yourself again, whose voice has been in your head? This is why our journey through these 20 episodes matters. Because if you do not learn to recognize the whisper, you will mistake it for your own heartbeat. And once you mistake it, once you believe this is me, the battle is already lost. And perhaps it always was. Keck, in the next breath, in the next shadow, we will step into where it began. Into the story, not told by fire and brimstone sermons, but buried in clay tablets, scrolls, gospels, and hadith, the making of the first whisper. But for now, let the silence gnaw at you, and when that next strange thought crosses your mind tonight, ask yourself, was that really me? Let's tear open the curtain, not slowly, no. Let's rip it wide, so you see what was hidden in the dark before the world even had a name. Before there were cities, before books, before languages, there was a rebellion, not on earth, but in a realm older than dirt, older than stars. The Qur'an speaks of him. He was from among the jinn, created from smokeless fire, and he disobeyed the command of his Lord. Surah Al-Kahf, 1850. The Bible paints the same figure as the dragon, the shining star cast down. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Isaiah 14:12. Different tongues, different centuries, same scar on history. But let's change the pace. Don't imagine ancient poetry. Imagine a courtroom drama. Imagine a godlike judge commanding every creation to bow before a new form, a fragile creature made of dirt. And there, in the gallery of eternity, one figure stood up, not with silence, but with laughter. I am fire, he thought. Why should fire bend to dust? Milton's Paradise Lost gives him a voice drenched in venom. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. And yet the Qur'an tells us something simpler, sharper, crueler. I am better than him. You created me from fire and created him from clay. Surah Al-A'raf 7:12. That's it. The first whisper was not to man, it was to himself. The whisper of pride, pause, breathe. Do you hear that? The sound of pride is quiet. It doesn't scream. It hums in the background. It tells you you deserve more. You are above them. You are too good to bow. That was his seed. And seeds, as you know, grow into forests. But here's where the rhythm bends again. Science speaks. Evolutionary psychology tells us pride is one of the most dangerous human traits. It isolates. It blinds. It convinces the mind it doesn't need correction. From the ancient epic of Gilgamesh to the Stoic writings of Marcus Aurelius, pride is warned against as the one poison that makes all other poisons taste sweet. So here's the chilling truth. Shaitan's fall wasn't about fire and clay. That was just his excuse. His true crime, the same crime waiting in your chest right now. I am better. Just picture the moment. Every being bowed, light cascading like rivers around Adam's form, and in the silence, one figure stood stiff, unmoving. That single act of refusal sent a fracture through the order of existence. One act of defiance echoed into millennia of destruction. Jewish midrash calls him Samael, the venom of God. Early Christian fathers called him Diabolos, the slanderer. The Qur'an calls him Iblis, the one who despairs. Different names, same shadow. So when you feel that tug inside you, that voice saying, you don't need to listen, you don't need to obey, you're better than them, understand this. You're standing in the same courtroom, and the whisperer is smiling because you're reenacting his rebellion word for word. This is where the nightmare began, not with blood, not with violence, but with something smaller, subtler, deadlier, a single whisper of pride. And from that whisper came war, the serpent's secret, what really happened in Eden. Whispers of darkness, imagine the scene as though you're standing at a crime scene. The body isn't human, it's the innocence of creation itself. The chalk outlines are still glowing in eternity. The witnesses, angels, silent and stunned. And the detective's question hangs in the air. What happens when pride takes its first victim? The fall wasn't quiet. Scripture tells us it was violent. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. Revelation 12:7-9. War in heaven. Think about that. Not a mythic metaphor. War. A cosmic fracture that tore eternity's silence apart. The Qur'an frames it differently, more intimate. Iblis wasn't expelled by a sword, but by a sentence, condemned until the day of judgment. Surah Sad 38, 77 to 85. 2 records, 2 lenses, 1 crime. But let's follow the evidence like investigators. What did he do next? The book of Enoch whispers about fallen ones, spirits that followed him, tainting the daughters of men, birthing giants, flooding the earth with corruption. The Zoroastrian Avesta speaks of Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit, unleashing demons to gnaw at creation's edges. And Babylonian tablets describe Pazuzu, the demon of the wind, riding the deserts with sickness. Different names, different times, but like fingerprints, the pattern is the same. The crime scene repeats across history. A step closer, notice the method. He didn't arrive with fire and armies. He arrived with a whisper, sliding into Eden, a serpent in the grass, soft words curling around Eve's ears. You will not die. You will become like gods. Genesis 3, 4-5. The Qur'an echoes it. He whispered to them to expose what was hidden of their shame. And he swore to them, I am truly your sincere advisor. Surah Al-Araf 7:20-21. Do you see it? The world's first crime wasn't theft, wasn't murder, wasn't war. It was persuasion. The first weapon wasn't a blade. It was a sentence. Here's where psychology backs it up. Modern studies on persuasion show how the brain is wired for influence, authority bias, repetition, flattery. The very tools Satan used in Eden are the same ones advertisers, cult leaders, and abusers use today. It's not folklore. It's a system. And when Adam and Eve listened, when they let the voice become their own, innocence fell like shattered glass. Lock all. Trike, so let's write it down like a detective's report. Motive, pride. Method, whisper. Crime, corruption of innocence. Weapon, words. Victims, humanity. Case file still open. Turl. But here's the real terror. That case isn't ancient. The serpent still whispers. The fingerprints are still on your life. Every time you feel the pull toward something you swore you'd never do, you're standing in Eden again. And the whisperer is still hissing, I am your friend. I only want what's best for you. The crime scene isn't over. It only just began. And as we move forward, we'll track the shadows through history, how every civilization carved his name into their fears, how every prophet warned of him, how every soul is still cross-examined by his lies. But remember this as the lights dim on Section 4. The greatest trick the whisperer ever pulled was convincing the world that his crime was just a story. 5. The dark psychology, how Satan plants thoughts in your mind. Whispers of darkness. The chamber is vast, carved from silence. No walls, no ceiling, just darkness that stretches into eternity. A single spotlight burns down on you, and suddenly you are on trial. You don't get a choice in the matter. None of us do. The accuser steps forward, not with chains, not with a weapon, but with a voice sharp as a blade. The Bible calls him the accuser of our brethren, who accuses them before God day and night. Revelation 12:10. In Islam, he's Iblis, who swore, I will lie in wait on your straight path. Surah Al-Araf 7:16. Different names, same prosecutor. And here's the horror. He's not lying. He doesn't need to. Look at this one, he says, pointing at you. They claim loyalty, but see how easily they bend. They preach kindness, but look at their envy. They speak of faith, but watch them at night when no one sees. The courtroom isn't filled with jurors. It's filled with your memories. Every moment you've hidden, every sin you excused, standing tall as witnesses against you. The scrolls open, pages flutter. The record is exact. Jewish texts call him Satan, literally the adversary, not a cartoon devil with horns, but a prosecutor, relentless, cold. And the Zohar goes further. He is both the tempter and the accuser, the one who lures you into the trap, then drags you into court for falling into it. A rigged system, a cosmic setup. But let's slow the pace. Look at the strategy. He whispers temptation into your ear, and when you take the bait, he shifts roles. Suddenly, he's the one pointing at you saying, "See? They chose it themselves." Psychologists call this double-bind manipulation. Abusers use it. Cult leaders thrive on it. The whisperer invented it. He tricks you into falling, then convinces you it was always your fault. And somewhere deep inside, you believe it, because the evidence is real. You did think those thoughts. You did act on them. The voice just gave you the nudge. The Qur'an calls this moment waswasa, whispering, planting seeds of doubt. The Apocalypse of Moses describes Satan laughing as Adam and Eve fall, declaring, "By their fall I have risen." The ancient Sumerians described Ereshkigal's demons, dark entities who recorded every human weakness in invisible tablets. Different books, different centuries, one courtroom drama. Now imagine the cross-examination. The accuser leans closer. His questions slice into your chest. If you are pure, why do you think such dark thoughts? If you are faithful, why do you doubt when pain comes? If you are strong, why do you break so easily? And you, speechless, because in this courtroom, silence is guilt. But here's the paradox. Science shows us something terrifying. The brain records every experience, even the ones you suppress. Memories buried in the subconscious never vanish. They sit there, waiting. And the whisperer knows how to dig them up like a skilled attorney pulling out damning evidence at just the right moment. The verdict feels inevitable. And yet, the case isn't closed, not yet, because if there's a trial, there must be a sentence. And if there's a sentence, there must be an end. This is where our journey heads next, into the whispers that didn't just accuse, but reshaped entire civilizations. The evidence won't stay in the courtroom. It will bleed into history, into culture, into your very reflection. So as you leave this chamber for now, remember, you're not walking free. You're walking with a shadow still building its case against you. History is not written in ink. History is whispered. And some whispers are older than empires, older than kingdoms, older than even the dust beneath your feet. The serpent's voice, the whisperer's cunning, did not die with Eden. It traveled, patient and precise, seeding corruption across civilizations. The Sumerians called it Lilitu, spirits that twisted human desire. The Akkadians wrote of Pazuzu, carrying disease and malice on desert winds. Ancient Egypt's Book of the Dead warned, "He who whispers into the heart is the shadow that follows the soul." Every culture etched the same story in its own language, a shadow that bends humanity without visible chains. Picture the streets of Babylon, the ziggurats towering like hands grasping the sky. Priests chant, scribes write, kings boast, But behind every corner, the whisper moves, invisible, shaping ambition, greed, lust. It is subtle. A suggestion here, a doubt there. You will notice it only when the empire collapses, when walls fall, when brothers betray brothers. The Greek philosophers called it daimones, spirits that could not be killed, only observed and feared. Dante's Inferno would later immortalize the same principle. Evil is patient. It does not need to rush. It waits. It entices. It strikes when you are already weakened. Capax, let's shift the frame. Imagine an artist painting a cityscape. Everything is bright, orderly, but in the shadows, a figure moves, altering shapes, bending lines, changing colors. That is what the whisperer does. He does not need armies. He needs perception. He changes the way humans see themselves. Pride, envy, hatred. Tools of a sculptor who chisels with whispers, not knives. The Jewish Midrash describes Samael, whose touch leaves marks invisible to the eye, but indelible on the soul. The Zoroastrian Avesta describes Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit weaving malice into human life so subtly that men believe it is natural, inevitable. Science mirrors this ancient horror. Neuroscience proves that human brains are susceptible to priming. A small suggestion can cascade into decisions, actions, entire belief systems. History confirms it. Wars, betrayals, conspiracies, traces of whispers embedded in every catastrophe. Step closer. See the pattern. The whisperer never creates the act. He nudges the actor. Humanity builds its own prisons, while the whisperer smiles from the shadows. Even in texts hidden from common knowledge, the Testament of Solomon, the Apocalypse of Moses, the apocryphal life of Adam and Eve, there is the same theme, a single being, subtle, relentless, exploiting the mind's weakest edges. And now, the crescendo. You feel it in your chest, the chill crawling down your spine. The whisperer's influence is not a story. It is reality, and reality is still rewriting itself around you. Every ambition, every betrayal, every fear you have ever felt, every doubt you have whispered to yourself, they are fingerprints left behind by the first whisper, echoing through history into this very moment. The empire falls, the king dies, the priest prays, the whisper waits, and you, reader, listener, observer, you are part of its evidence, its courtroom, its battlefield. This is Section 6's truth. History is not just dates and battles. History is the pattern of whispers. And if you do not see them, if you do not recognize them, they will rewrite your story next. And so, as the night thickens and your mind listens, the whisperer does not rest. He waits for the cracks, tiny, almost invisible, in the minds of those who dare to think themselves awake. You might think the whispers are ancient, buried under dust and clay tablets, lost to the echoes of civilizations long dead. But pause, look around, listen closely. They are here, always. In the hum of your electronics, the chatter of crowded streets, the silence of your bedroom at night. The same whisper that slithered through Eden now rides your thoughts. Modern psychology gives it a name: intrusive thoughts, cognitive bias, the hidden self. Science says the brain processes thousands of stimuli per second, and yet only a fraction reaches consciousness. But the whisperer knows the gaps, the blind spots, the cracks in perception. He nudges, he prods, he exploits. You feel guilt for something you barely considered. You envy a friend, then hate yourself for it. You see opportunity and suddenly morality fades. The Dead Sea Scrolls already described it. Belial, who bends men's hearts without hands, who drives kings to folly, who whispers in the ears of soldiers on battlefields, and now the battlefield is your own mind. Imagine standing in your office watching a colleague succeed, and suddenly, an inexplicable thought. You could ruin them. They deserve it. It isn't you? Not entirely. Somewhere in the lineage of whispers, from Babylon to Enoch, from Dante to Augustine, there is a seed nudging, tilting your moral compass. Ancient texts called it by many names. Greek kakodaimones, spirits of mischief and malice. Jewish sitra achra, the other side, a constant tempter. Babylonian demons, harbingers of chaos, invisible but felt, all converging like rivers into a single ocean of influence. The terror isn't fire or brimstone. It's subtle. It's intimate. It whispers in the small spaces of your life, your dreams, your regrets, your ambitions. And the worst part? You start to think it's your own idea. Stephen King would describe it like this: a shadow that grows behind you when you look in the mirror, whispering, "I am you, but better. I know what you want. I can give it and you feel it. The lure, the temptation, the chill that raises goosebumps on your arms, the dark thrill of contemplating the unspeakable. That is the whisperer's signature." Science echoes the old texts. Neurology shows that even subtle suggestion can dramatically alter decision-making. A thought repeated, even silently, reshapes neural pathways. History proves it. Leaders, societies, entire populations moved by unseen forces, by whispers no one admits hearing. And so, the whispers of darkness persist, through millennia, across continents, inside you. So now, feel it, that cold breath on your neck, the pause in your heartbeat, the sudden doubt. That is not imagination. That is the echo of the first whisper, stretching across time, testing you, marking you. You are part of the experiment. You are part of the story. And as this episode unfolds further, you will see how those whispers shape reality itself, how even the strongest minds falter, and how the first rebel from eternity still thrives inside the human psyche. But remember, the whispers are patient, they are cunning. They do not rush, but they always arrive. And as your eyes adjust to the darkness of this revelation, you understand this is only the beginning. The room grows colder. Shadows stretch long and thin across the walls, twisting like fingers. You are alone. Yet every sound, your heartbeat, the whisper of the air, the faint hum of the street outside, feels amplified, deliberate. And then it comes. Not a roar, not a scream, but a whisper, soft yet piercing. You can have what you desire. No one will know. No one will stop you. And the first temptation is subtle. A thought lingers at the edge of your mind, as if it were planted by someone else. You sense it, but you think it is yours. That is the power of the whisperer. From Eden to today, the method is unchanged. Appeal to what is hidden, private, forbidden, irresistible. The book of Enoch describes the angels who fell not by force, but by fascination. The Qur'an warns, he whispers to them to make fair seeming that which is evil for them. Surah An-Nisa 4:119. Dante called it the soft seduction of sin. Every source, every culture, every text says the same. Evil tempts first, strikes second. Now picture yourself in a modern scenario. A colleague receives credit for your work. A thought brushes your mind. They don't deserve it. I could take it for myself. You laugh it off, shake your head, but the whisper persists, molding the impulse, shaping it, turning a fleeting thought into a plan. Stephen King would linger here, not on action, but on anticipation. The pause, the dread. Your own moral struggle becomes the horror, because the whisperer doesn't need to act. You will act for him if he plays the strings long enough. Science supports the terror. Cognitive psychology proves that repeated exposure to subtle suggestions rewires the brain. Minor temptations, thoughts, doubts, they compound over time, altering perception, morality, and decisions. The whispers are not fantasy. They are manipulations your mind cannot always resist, and history confirms it. Every betrayal, every act of corruption, every quiet sin in human chronicles, the fingerprint of the whisperer is there. From the fall of empires to personal moral failures, the method is identical. Infiltrate the mind, coax action, remain invisible. Perhaps you feel it now, that whisper in your chest, the tug at your conscience, the fascination with the forbidden. That is the echo of Iblis, Lucifer, Belial, Samael, the same being whispered into every ear for millennia. His triumph is subtle. You do not see him, yet he moves within you. And here lies the final revelation of Section 8. The story is not external. The battle is not fought in heaven or hell alone. It is fought inside every human heart, every mind, every thought. The whisperer's power lies in intimacy, in subtlety, in patience. As this episode closes, remember the pattern, the lesson, the terror. Whispers are ancient. Whispers are patient. Whispers manipulate. Whispers reside in you. And when the next shadow crosses your mind, when temptation knocks softly and persuasively, you will know the first episode has shown the battlefield, the enemy, and the method. And the whisperer is still listening, still waiting, still shaping the human story.